But I want to welcome Matthew Bellows, the CEO and founder of Yesware, to the stage. Pleasure to host Matthew. I wanted to start, Matthew and I have been on the entrepreneurial journey together almost from day one. That photo that I shared at the beginning of Jesse and Eric and myself at Techstars, just down the hall when that photo was taken, Matthew was starting his own company called Yesware. And so we were literally in the same shared office space from day one, continue to build our companies in the Boston ecosystem together. And at one point we were recruited to actually run the Boston Marathon together. The four of us were founders and CEOs. None of us had run a marathon before. And so Matthew and I, and it was during the winter of 2015 when there was 120 inches of snow in Boston, and we trained outside every Sunday morning for all of our long runs in the snow. I don't know why we did that. It made no sense. But this is a photo from the marathon day, and just reflective of the weather that day. This photo was taken before the marathon, which is why we're smiling.
And just so you know, that was the last time that I was in front of Brent. I remember, like, we're all lined up to go, and you were like, bye. We're like, bye, see you at the finish line.
Just like we practiced. Good job.
I know, right?
Okay. And so I want to talk a little bit about Yesware, which is a tool that we use at EverTrue. Are there any Yesware users in the room? Raise them high. A couple. Okay, this is kind of a secret. So this is one of those things, long-term vision, big-time thinking. And then there's some stuff that, like, you could do this afternoon for a cost of $0. This is going to be one of those things that I think can be really applicable whether you're on the engagement side, annual giving, or major gift fundraising. We use Yesware on literally a daily basis as we try to create a more personalized experience for all of you. So I'm going to let Matt talk a little bit about Yesware, but we just heard from a great group of panelists who are really talking about modern marketing, right? Using words, just in that last panel, all the buzzwords that were used that we don't talk about in advancement all the time. Hopefully there's some takeaways and some ideas, but this is now a movement really into the sales world, which I think is going to map closely to development. I've seen some folks taking photos of slides, which always makes me feel like they're really valuable, unless you're taking a photo thinking, never make a slide like this, which hopefully isn't the case. But this is going to be one of those presentations. Have your phones ready, because I think there are some photos you can take that you might be able to present to your team when you get back. So why don't you give us a little bit on why Yesware. We also share some time at Brown University in common, which is great. But just give us a bit of the Yesware story, and then let's dive into some of the data.
Sure. Yeah. So the way to think about Yesware is just software that customizes the things that we all use every day, email, phone, calendar, CRM systems, for the sales profession. And when I say sales, it's sort of think broadly about sales, quota-carrying inside salespeople who are trying to sell a piece of software, or development directors, or real estate agents, or anybody who maintains, scores to hundreds of relationships at a time and wants to build them over their career or their job.
I'm going to stop you. He just used an expression, quota-carrying inside sales representatives. How many of you have those in your organization? Raise them high.
Couple.
So that just...
Yeah, level set.
Level set.
Right, exactly. Thank you. That's good. So, nonetheless, I would posit that
but all
most
of you have outside sales reps, AKA development officers.
Yeah. So most of you are on. Raise your hand if you or someone on your team is on a quota. You have a goal for a month or a quarter or a year. A third, maybe. That's interesting. So most people don't even have a quota. You have a goal. Right? Most development directors have a goal. They want to bring in so much revenue.
But down to the individual.
At a period.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's helpful. The point is that Yesware tries to make your communication with lots of people be authentic and personal. So we're trying to make personal, authentic communications at scale.
So how many of you received the email from me 2 days ago asking you how we could maximize your Raise experience? Raise them really high. I actually wrote all of those individually, and it took a really, really long time. No, just kidding. I used Yesware. And as a result, all of you received an email from me that was directly from me. You weren't BCC'd. It wasn't a marketing blast. And it felt hopefully more real. And I got a lot of great responses back to that question. How can I help improve your conference? And I bet, and Matthew has data, that if we had just sent a standard EverTrue marketing email and asked you the same question, fewer of you would have responded because it wouldn't have felt like it came from a human. And so that is an example of how we're trying to practice what we preach. And ultimately, we did want to know how we could maximize your experience. And so by making it both personalized but also fast, we felt that would help increase the number of responses that we would get.
Yeah. So we integrate deeply into these tools. We integrate with your email. We integrate with your calendar. We help you book the meetings that you need to book. But the software that we produce is just one of our products. Another major product that we produce is the research that comes out of the software. So 60,000 people use Yesware on a daily basis for their professional life. We gather that data and we segment and aggregate it so that we can then pass back best practices to the people who use the software and just the people who visit the blog to read about it, so that they can get better. They can get better at doing their job. I don't know why you put this slide up there. What were you thinking?
I wanted to let people know that you'd raised about $30 million in the scale of your company.
Okay.
You also were 3 people when our photo was taken up front. You're now how many people here in Boston?
About 85.
85 people.
Yeah.
So lots of data. I've been fascinated by the data that Matthew shared in the past. I saw this recent presentation and I said, boom, that's got to be something that we showcase at Raise. And so I'll let you, take the clicker. I'll interject with some Q&A for the audience. Yeah.
So the goal, obviously, when you're communicating with lots of people at scale, is that you want to rise above the noise. You want your message to be opened and responded to, as opposed to all the other hundreds of emails that we get every day and just delete without even opening.
Because you all are competing with Puma and Wayfair and Drift for the attention of the people that they want to get revenue from, that you might want volunteerism, annual giving, or major gift support.
Right. So here are a bunch of very tactical sort of best practices that you can use to increase the chance that your email is responded to efficiently and in comparison to many of the emails that people just delete. So this is based on data that we gathered through a series of studies where literally the N here is either hundreds of thousands or millions of emails sent. Users of Yesware last year sent about 1 billion emails. So we have a large data set from which to gather this data. And what this slide shows is basically on a per email basis, how many people open and respond to an email in a chain. So in the first dot series there on the far left, you have the open in blue and the reply rate in green for sending to one person. So I don't know if you can see the numbers, but the open rate on sending to one person across this enormous data set is about 64%. And the reply rate is about 36%. If you send it to an additional person, that's the next set of dots over, you get a significantly higher open and reply rate. So a significantly 77% and 55% open rate and reply rate. And then the third piece is sending it to more than 2 people, 2 or more people. 3 or more people. So the suggestion here is obviously that if you can send it to more than one person, you're going to get a higher response rate because one of the 2 people or one of the 3 people is going to open and then reply to that email. We see this specifically in terms of best practices if you can send to one person and copy another person. So send to the alumni, copy the spouse. Send to the head of the company, copy the chief of staff of the company, et cetera. By doing that kind of tactical email addressing, you're going to dramatically improve your open and your reply rates.
Do any of you already kind of know this? Do you intentionally copy the spouse because you know that the odds that somebody's going to get back to you go up, or does that feel uncomfortable? Do you intentionally copy the assistant when you're trying to book the visit, or do you feel like you need to wait for that person to copy the assistant in to then schedule the meeting. Just some thoughts as we think about the development world. Yeah.
And by the way, if anyone has questions or feedback on these things at any time, just raise your hand and we'll jump right into it. So that's just about the send part of it. This piece is really about how you write your subject line, because your subject line is the most important indicator of whether or not the email will be opened. There's actually not a lot of correlation between subject line content and reply rate, but there's quite a bit of correlation between open and subject line. So what we did is we basically looked at subject lines from hundreds of thousands of emails that had a specific goal, which is through using machine learning, we basically looked and read the contents of the emails and categorized them around, these are emails that want to book a meeting. And then we said, what are the subject lines of those emails? And what are the words in the subject lines that resulted in a positive or a negative response to those emails? And so what we found is, in this graph, we have the reply rate up and down, and we have the open rate of those emails on the x-axis. And so subject lines that use the word calendar, like, could I get on your calendar, were the worst of all the different groups of text you could use. And subject lines that use the word call had both the very over-indexed in terms of open rate and very over-indexed in terms of reply rate. So your data your results may vary on these types of things based on who you're writing to and what they want to know, but it's crucial to know that one, you can test this, you can know this, and two, you can start at a baseline that says, as you craft your subject lines, as you craft your emails, there's a bunch of data out there that shows don't use this word, do use that word.
Why? Why do we think calendar performs so poorly? Does anybody have?
So our analysis does not reveal why, sadly, but my intuitive sense of it, as someone who receives a lot of emails, is like the word calendar associates with a set of administrative tasks that I then have to do. I have to negotiate my calendar versus that person's calendar. It's also a big kind of awkward word, whereas call is very action-oriented, it can be quick, and it's much more dynamic.
I'll take it.
Okay, so this section is about when do I stop emailing somebody?
This is really important.
This is
my favorite part.
This is really important because so this is like think of it as a burn down chart where for each dot on this graph over time, it's the percentage chance that you will get a reply to that email. So the first dot is 30%. So when you send in this data set, 30% of the emails that were sent got a reply on the first email out. On the second email out, 21% got a reply. On the third email out, 18% of them got a reply, et cetera. So the chances go dramatically down. The most interesting thing is that when we look at the chains of emails across many of our customers, almost everybody stops after the first email. Like 70% of our customers who are professional salespeople who get paid on how many deals they close, stop sending after one email, which means that they're missing all the rest of that chain. Yes?
What was the time frame from the first email to the second email?
Yeah, that's a great question. What was the time frame from the first to the second? So this ranged across a bunch of different campaigns, we call them. So the time frame changes depending on the campaign and the style of sales outreach, but you should think about it as like over the course of between 10 and 30 days. This sort of encompasses most of the data we studied here.
For some of the senior leaders in the room, have you ever heard something like, they didn't reply to my email?
Right.
So now you can say, what about your 8th one? Did they respond to the 8th email? How many people feel uncomfortable with the thought of sending the same person a 7th email?
That's it?
A lot of people feel uncomfortable with that. That's why I love this data, because on a personal level, I mean, this feels like you're borderline harassing someone.
Yeah.
But in fact, you're not. Sometimes,
Well,
right?
this
I mean,
is-
and so some of it is the tone and how you do it, and you have some tactics later that we'll talk about how do you send, if you send the same exact email 7 times in a row, that probably isn't the right approach.
No,
but-
no, I will say for sure that is
Yeah.
not the right approach.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Don't do that. But this is where you get back to authentic communication at scale, because what Yesware enables you to do is basically craft a campaign that over a period of time you can send different messages with different value propositions and different ways of benefiting. I totally resonated with it, what all the speakers have said so far, right? The optimum campaign for you is not, do you want to give? Do you want to give? Do you want to give? How about giving now? Do you want to give later? Like that. It's more to say, over the course of time, here's a set of things that we think you might be interested in. There's an alumni gathering, and we know you're a VC, so here's a VC gathering that we're doing, and here's a new online class that we thought you might be interested in. Those are ways where you could very quickly automate a personal outreach campaign to these people and make sure that you're in touch with them enough, but at the same time you're giving them value. And I promise you that your reply rates will go up and your engagement will go up, but you can't just keep spamming.
Does anybody have a story where it took like 5 or 6 or 7 emails and then actually something really good did come out of it? Anything stand out? It's because we all stopped after 1. That makes sense. Okay, yeah.
How do the numbers improve or change if you integrate other kinds of methods like texting or personal phone call, voice?
Yeah, so that I don't have good cross-channel data here, but many of our customers are integrating those different touches into a campaign. So a research task, a email task, a phone call task, a social task, et cetera, to build a much more full-fledged campaign. This starts to look like the marketing automation software that maybe some of you use as well to communicate at scale. But the difference here is that it's coming from the individual development director or salesperson.
How do you deal with the issue around filters and most email providers and those emails going into the promotions tab or?
Right. That's a great question.
Great question.
So how do we deal with promotion filters and other kind of email services that try to segment out marketing emails? One of the key things is because these emails come from the individual sender and their account, as opposed to an email server that blasts out thousands or hundreds of thousands of emails a day, the deliverability that we've seen is much, much higher. And we've heard our customers say, basically, when we switched to your approach, because it comes from the individual, our deliverability went up by about 50%.
So if you were to look in my sent box over the last 2 days, when we hit go on the Yesware campaign asking you all how we could optimize your experience, in my Gmail, there would be 300 individual emails that were sent out of my sent box, 1-to-1, so it was still me to you. And so it looks a lot more like what you'd expect in just any other Gmail or Outlook interaction.
Okay, how many emails do you typically send to prospects? You kind of just did this, but I'd love to know. Do you have a threshold or a rule for your development agents that say don't send more than 1 or send 10 and quit? Or
Now I see laughter when that question is asked, so I'm always curious to know what the laughter's about. But what does 13 mean? 13.
Outreaches before you can say that they're non-responsive.
Okay, so
Did you go to like a Yesware webinar 2 years ago, or where'd that come from? That's great.
and over what
13.
period of time?
Ideally, you should work them for a year before
A year.
moving them up. And I have done that, where you continue to outreach across a year. And it took about a year to get in, and they then converted
Right.
10 years later to probably $1 million.
So we just had 13 touch points over the course of the year before you are able to say someone is unresponsive. And Elizabeth does have examples where it did take 12 or 13 to convert somebody to $1 million gift. Good thing you didn't stop at 9. That's great. Yeah. Anybody else have a process around this or training for DOs or alumni relations professionals?
We have a theory in our office where there's only 3 ways out from stop getting emails from us. You say no, you give a gift, or you die.
3 ways out to stop getting emails. You say no, you give a gift, or you die. Interesting strategy. Which institution is that? Eisenberg at UMass Amherst. So all you Eisenberg alums in the room, that explains it. Yeah, no, that's.
Just give a
and when
gift,
you say
right.
that, do you mean on a one-to-one basis, or you mean more from a marketing perspective? One-to-one. Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
All right, I see the 5-minute thing going, so I want to make
Yep.
sure we get through this. How soon should we expect our emails to be opened or replied? Okay, you probably can't read the numbers here, but you can get the sense of it. Basically, if you don't get a reply in a day, you're not going to get a reply. Okay, the most interesting thing about that actually is that you see the 1-day reply rate and open rate is the highest by far. And then there's a long desert of no reply, which is 2-day, 3-day, 4-day. And then you see at the end, the 4 or more day, there's a little bump again, right? So there are behaviors and situations where people queue up emails, and you probably do it yourself, for days and days and days and weeks at a time sometimes, and then they get back to you, okay? So it's not completely hopeless, but basically, if you don't get a reply in a day, you're probably not going to get a reply. You guys use that, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
So best time of day to send your emails. I'm going to guess that 80% of you are not doing this correctly based on the data. The green bar, the green line here is the reply rate across these different segments, and the gray is the number of emails actually sent. So you can see the gray goes from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., and you can see that the number of emails sent in that hour, this is all adjusted for time zone, goes way up starting at around 10 a.m. and stays very high until about 5 p.m. Well, that makes sense because people are sitting at their desks sending lots of emails. And correspondingly, the reply rate goes down in those times. And knowing that so few people actually reply after one day, it's pretty important that you actually you send the email at a time when they will reply to it. So the best way to do this is to send it super early in the morning, i.e. before 10 a.m., or later at night, actually, after 6 p.m. And in both those cases, the reply rate goes up because people at those times are either focused on their emails or they're not in meetings so they can reply back quickly. And that's actually what you want. So
you ever heard the expression, how do we work, smart, not necessarily hard? This is an example where you could take all of the emails you sent yesterday and shift them out to the edges and have just probably been more productive without any additional work. But Matthew, I'm at work from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Yeah.
I don't want to work at 6 a.m. and 8 p.m.
Yeah.
every day just to get better email replies. What should I do?
I'm so glad you asked that question, Brent. Because if you, this is not the right slide, there it is. So if you use Yesware, we have a feature built into it such that you can write the email and schedule it to be sent. People use this for, I'm working on the weekends and I don't want my team to see that I'm working on the weekends, so I'm going to schedule it to be sent on Monday morning. Or they use it for this exact sales purpose, which is like, I want to communicate with someone when they're going to reply to me, but I am at work at 10 a.m., so I'm not going to have the chance. How do I go back? Oh yeah, so this is the best day to send emails. And again, it's counterintuitive. What we find when we look at emails sent, and this is a subset of 500,000 emails or so, that sending on a weekday has relatively lower open rates and reply rates, especially, than sending on a weekend. Makes sense. People are at work. They're not replying to email. So if you send it on the weekend, people work at home. They check their email all the time on their phone. They're much, much more likely to open your email and reply to it if you send it on a weekend. Okay, so we covered the who to send it to, i.e. more than one person. Specifically, if you can, someone in the to line and someone in the CC line. We talked about the subject line criteria, or at least some language that works in the subject line. There is a lot more data about this and other components of this on our blog. So if you want to look at blog.yesware.com, tons of research about this stuff there. How many to send, i.e. more like 13 than 1, and when, which is not during normal working hours, early in the morning, late at night, and on the weekends. Oh yeah, so these are some sample emails. which maybe we're going to distribute these slides.
Yeah.
So you'll see them better in the actual thing, but.
I haven't heard back from you, and that
Yeah.
tells me one of three things.
Yeah.
You've already chosen a different company for this, and if that's the case, please let me know so I can stop bothering you. 2, you're still interested but haven't had the time to get back to me yet. 3, you've fallen and can't get up. In that case, let me know, and I'll call 911. Please let me know which one it is because I'm starting to worry. Thanks in advance and looking forward to hearing from you. So now let's just, find replace. You've already chosen to give your gift to a different college, and if that's the case, please let me know so I can stop bothering you. You're still interested in donating this year but haven't had the time to get back to me yet, or you've fallen and can't get up. In that case, let me know and I'll call 911. How many of you cringe at the thought of using an email like that in communicating with your donors? Raise them high if this makes you a little uncomfortable. Does anybody, Todd works at West Point, he raised his hand so high. He was like, get out of here.
They would kill me.
Is there a version of this, though? Because, maybe some of you have received emails like this from EverTrue folks over time, but do you have any examples where you have found a way to break through the noise or to be, to take a little bit of risk? Because what I can tell you is it might make you feel uncomfortable. But the hundreds of thousands of sales professionals that are using software like Yesware and other tools, trying to reach the same exact people you're trying to reach, aren't afraid to use a little bit of humor and have some fun.
Yeah.
Because per Dave Gerhardt's comments, these people are all just people. And I would challenge you, take a small risk. Try something like that with a few prospects who are so cold, maybe it's email number 14. You have nothing to lose. What if it works?
Yeah.
And what if they say, I've been solicited by development people for 20 years and it's always felt the same way? That's funny. Throw a GIF in of somebody falling down. Maybe it's somebody calling 911. I don't know. We're just trying to brainstorm here. Has anybody done something like this? Okay, you raised it high. So what do you got?
I was going to say, we haven't done anything exactly like that.
Well, that's disappointing, but keep going. No, just kidding.
But if you take that humorous approach, but instead of making it something negative that happened to them, like falling, just in case they did have a tragic thing happen to them, if you made it a positive thing, like you've won the lottery and are currently sailing around the world.
Yeah, that's good.
In that case, let
Yep.
me know.
Yeah.
Because we actually do have we have a lot of older donors, and
It's a good idea. I like her idea better. Yeah. No, that's a good idea.
I don't condone this. This is Yesware stuff, okay? So I just want to make that clear.
I cringe a little bit about this too, but the fact of the matter is, like, it works, right? This email, which is largely a pre-breakup email, or I'm about to give up on this account, has a 46% reply rate. So use it as a brainstorming material. Okay, always end with a CTA. Always end this. We're running out of time here.
We're gonna go.
I just want to let you know that one of the best ways to end an email is to ask for something specific. I personally hate emails that are like, can we set up some time? Or let's have a coffee. No. Propose a time to me and tell me if that, because that already takes away half of the matching. So in this example, this is a sales email that we've used that gets about a 52% reply rate. And I think the key to that is at the very last line it says, are you able to evaluate this on Monday at 2 p.m.? If not, please let me know what's best. Okay, it gives them a specific time to anchor. I'm going to be in Boston on Thursday. Have you got any time between 11 and 2 p.m. for me to come by your office? That kind of specificity then helps narrow down my calendar. The last thing I'll say is just, we have a lot of people in the development world that use Yesware. We have a lot of different kinds of salespeople that use Yesware. You can try it all for free. So if you use Outlook 365 or Gmail in your office, or frankly even the older versions of Outlook, you can download Yesware, try it for free, and I would love to hear your feedback. My email is matthew@yesware.com. I'd be happy to talk to you about your use case or any questions you have about this data.
Next slide. I think that might be it. Okay, so with that, please give it up for Matthew. I saw lots of people taking photos. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Enjoy a break. See you back here at 11.